3 hidden places he cheats with her. 1. The hidden shift. Listen closely, because this is where many women get blindsided. On the surface, he seems completely normal, still affectionate, still present, still saying the right things. He smiles, he reassures you, he even seems more attentive than usual. And yet, deep down, something feels off. A tiny, gnawing sense that things aren't exactly as they should be. You can't explain it, and that's precisely what makes this kind of situation so dangerous. Most women are taught to look for the dramatic signs of cheating. Sudden disappearances, strange phone behavior, obvious lies, and secretive conversations. They're told to expect some kind of explosive behavior, a clear signal that something is wrong. But that's not how men usually operate when they're unfaithful. When a man cheats, he doesn't necessarily destroy the life you've built together. He doesn't announce it or make obvious moves that would immediately trigger suspicion. Instead, he hides, not in secrecy alone, but inside the routines and patterns you've already come to trust. He doesn't create chaos. He quietly reshapes the familiar in a way that makes the shift almost invisible. This is the first crucial thing to understand. Cheating doesn't require brand new behavior. Men rarely invent entirely new routines when they're hiding interest elsewhere. Instead, they stretch the routines that already exist. Late work hours that once seemed normal begin to extend subtly. Gym trips that were occasional now feel frequent, almost habitual. Casual hangouts with friends become more regular, but each outing comes with a slight change in energy, tone, or duration. On the surface, these activities appear harmless, and often they are socially acceptable or even encouraged. And that's why this camouflage is so effective. But here's the key point. It's not the activity itself that reveals the truth. It's the emotional access within the activity. A man may still follow the routines, but the way he engages with you inside them changes. The warmth that was once obvious in his texts now may be replaced with brief functional messages. Conversations that used to flow naturally now feel clipped or surface level. He might come home physically present, but emotionally distant. The kind of absence that's harder to quantify, but impossible to ignore once you notice it. Pay attention to the subtle details. They are the real signals. He used to share small stories about his day, the kind of details that made you feel connected. Now he only offers brief updates, almost as if he's checking a box. He used to check in spontaneously or make plans on the fly. Now he seems distant, distracted, or unavailable without explanation. He used to include you in small decisions, like choosing dinner or planning a weekend outing. Now he keeps choices to himself, creating a quiet separation that didn't exist before. None of this is paranoia. In fact, dismissing these signals as mere insecurity is exactly what allows the subtle shift to go unnoticed. This is pattern recognition at its core. When a man is emotionally loyal, even his independence feels connected to the relationship. His freedom is transparent, his choices inclusive, his emotional energy anchored to you. When he's emotionally investing elsewhere, the same routines start to feel hollow. The gym sessions, the after-work drinks, the long chats with friends, they remain the same on the surface, but the emotional residue has shifted. It's important to understand why this happens. Men who cheat are rarely dramatic about it because emotional concealment is more effective than confrontation. Chaos would create suspicion, and suspicion leads to questions. The most successful unfaithful partners maintain control over the narrative by keeping outward appearances normal. And because you've already accepted these routines as part of your life, the subtle changes in emotional behavior slip past unnoticed. That's why this kind of cheating is so deceptive. It's quiet, it's calculated, and it thrives in familiarity. So how do you protect yourself without overreacting or creating unnecessary conflict? Start by observing patterns, not isolated events. Look at the emotional rhythm over time. Notice changes in the warmth, attentiveness, and engagement that used to feel natural. Compare the past and the present, not just in what he does, but in how he shows up emotionally. Your instincts are valid. That quiet feeling in your chest, the small anxiety that something isn't right, pay attention to it. It's your intuition recognizing the subtle gap between routine behavior and emotional presence. This isn't about jumping to conclusions or spying on him obsessively. It's about gathering awareness, connecting the dots, and protecting your emotional energy. The signs of emotional drift are rarely dramatic, but they are consistent. They whisper, not shout, and they require a careful, attentive eye to spot. By paying attention to these shifts, the stretching of familiar routines, the reduction of emotional access, and the quiet absence behind normal behavior, you'll begin to see the truth that others often miss. And once you recognize the pattern, you gain the clarity to make informed decisions about your relationship rather than being blindsided by betrayal.
Weekend freedom. Sign 2. Weekend freedom becomes strategic distance. Weekends are socially accepted as personal time, which makes them a perfect cover for men who want room to drift emotionally or even pursue interests outside the relationship. Society has normalized the idea that weekends are for rest, hobbies, friends, errands, or personal projects. Because of this, no alarms go off when a man wants to extend his freedom during this time. He can go to the gym, run errands, meet with friends, or take part in activities that, on the surface, appear completely ordinary and even healthy. But here's the crucial detail. It's not the activity itself that signals a problem. It's the emotional return. How he re-engages with you after the weekend can reveal whether he's fully invested in the relationship or slowly creating distance. A man who is emotionally loyal will return from a weekend apart still connected. He will share his experiences, show warmth, and engage naturally. He will make an effort to include you in his life and maintain the bond that existed before his time away. In contrast, a man who is emotionally drifting will often come back different. The warmth may feel muted or redirected. Conversations that used to flow naturally now feel forced or surface level. You might notice that he seems distant, distracted, or less eager to share details about his time away. It's subtle at first, a slight hesitation, a shorter story, a change in tone, but over time these small shifts accumulate, creating a growing emotional gap. Ask yourself these questions when observing his weekend behavior. Is he emotionally present after these absences? Does he seem fully engaged with you, or does it feel like he's only partially there? Is there a spark in his energy that aligns with your connection, or does it feel disconnected? Does he share freely or remain distant? A man who is emotionally invested will naturally recount his experiences, even the small details, without being prompted. If he's holding back or only providing minimal information, that's a red flag. Does his energy feel warmer but not toward you? Sometimes men will return from personal time appearing energized or emotionally satisfied, but that energy isn't directed at you. It may feel like he's carrying emotional fulfillment from another source, which is a subtle but powerful sign of emotional drift. The combination of increased personal freedom and decreased emotional access is not coincidental. When a man starts to seek more time away and simultaneously offers less emotional engagement, it forms a pattern. This pattern doesn't emerge overnight, it develops gradually, which is why it can be so easy to dismiss at first. At first, it might feel like he just needed space, or maybe he's stressed, or maybe he's pursuing a hobby. But if you pay attention over weeks and months, you'll notice that these absences are consistently paired with a reduction in emotional availability. Awareness here is crucial. It's not about being suspicious or controlling. It's about noticing shifts, understanding patterns, and trusting your intuition when something feels off. Emotional drift is often subtle and easy to rationalize. Many women tell themselves, he's just enjoying his weekend, or he's working hard, he deserves a break. While these statements may be true, the key is to observe how he returns and how he interacts with you afterward. That's where the truth often shows itself. Even small changes are meaningful. Maybe he used to check in spontaneously during the weekend with texts, calls, or photos. Now he only responds when prompted. Maybe he used to plan activities for the two of you or share weekend plans in advance. Now he keeps his schedule private and seems indifferent to your involvement. Maybe he used to come home and immediately reconnect, asking about your day and expressing care. Now he returns physically present but emotionally distant, carrying a calmness or satisfaction that feels unfamiliar to you. This is not about creating paranoia, it's about cultivating emotional awareness. The goal isn't to accuse him every time he wants space, but to recognize patterns over time. Emotional presence is just as important as physical presence, and when emotional access diminishes consistently, it signals a potential shift in his priorities or loyalties. Another subtle signal is the quality of communication. Men who drift emotionally often maintain superficial connection while withholding depth. The texts, calls, and conversations may continue, but they lack the previous warmth, enthusiasm, or openness. He may seem polite, attentive, or even charming, but something essential, the deep emotional alignment, has shifted. Understanding this pattern allows you to protect yourself without unnecessary conflict. Observe the rhythm of his behavior over time. Pay attention not just to what he does during the weekend, but how he comes back. Notice the energy, the engagement, and the emotional depth of your interactions. This is where the clarity emerges. It's here in these subtle shifts that you can begin to understand whether the relationship is evolving or whether emotional drift or even infidelity is quietly taking root. By developing this awareness, you reclaim your emotional power. You no longer have to rationalize the unease you feel. You can trust your instincts, observe patterns, and respond with clarity rather than being caught off guard by gradual detachment. Weekends may appear harmless on the surface, but the way he returns and how emotionally present he is afterward reveals the reality beneath the routine.
3. Controlled transparency and your action plan. Sign 3. Controlled transparency. The most confusing and often overlooked sign of a man cheating is honesty itself. It sounds strange, but many women get misled because he may appear completely transparent. He tells you where he went, who he saw, or what he did, but he leaves out the parts that really matter. He may skip over the timing, the emotional energy invested, or even who else was involved. On the surface, everything seems open, but your intuition knows something is off. That small, persistent feeling in your gut, the one you can't explain, is trying to tell you the truth. This is what we call controlled transparency. He manages what you see without actually lying. It feels like honesty, but it's carefully curated to create a false sense of security. You might notice certain patterns, over-explaining minor details while leaving gaps in the important parts. For example, he might tell you in detail about the traffic on his way to the gym, but never mention why a friend hangout lasted 5 hours. Offering updates before you even ask, but only the information that reassures you superficially. He may report on mundane events, but not the moments that reveal emotional energy being spent elsewhere. Emotional availability that feels calculated, not natural. Conversations may appear engaging at first, but you notice that the warmth, the spontaneity, or the genuine connection is missing. It's polite, it's controlled, and it's just enough to prevent you from asking further questions. Controlled transparency is confusing because it plays on trust. Many women think, he's telling me everything, so I have no reason to worry. But that assumption is exactly what allows this tactic to work. Emotional loyalty is not about what he says. It's about the depth, consistency, and authenticity of his presence. When these are absent, your intuition is picking up on the missing emotional connection, even if the words he speaks seem truthful. So what do you do when you recognize these signs? Here's a practical action plan to respond without losing your frame, your dignity, or your emotional stability. Observe patterns, not isolated events. Cheating signs are rarely obvious in a single moment. They appear gradually, through repeated behaviors and subtle shifts.
Pay attention to how consistent or inconsistent his stories are, how often his emotional access diminishes, and how his routines are slowly altered. Patterns give you the truth over time. Regulate your emotions before reacting. Emotional control is your superpower. When you respond from clarity rather than anger or fear, you maintain your frame and avoid giving him leverage. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about observing first and acting second. Shift the dynamic. Pull back slightly. Reduce overinvestment. Stop seeking constant reassurance or chasing clarity. This doesn't mean you withdraw love or care. It means you create a space where his behavior is revealed naturally. Observe how he reacts when your availability changes, and notice whether he adjusts or resists. Trust your instincts without jumping to conclusions. Awareness is about gathering information, not starting a fight. Your intuition is a signal system. Pay attention to it. A subtle heaviness in your chest, a quiet anxiety, or the sense that something isn't right is your mind processing emotional drift. Learn to differentiate intuition from fear and let it guide your observations. Cheating is often subtle. It isn't always about dramatic disappearances or obvious lies. More often, it's about emotional drift, controlled access, and strategic transparency. Men who cheat may not vanish entirely. They simply reallocate emotional energy, keeping routines in place while their attention shifts elsewhere. Recognizing these behaviors early allows you to protect your emotional well-being without paranoia, drama, or unnecessary conflict. If this resonates with you, take action now. Like this video if you've noticed these patterns. Subscribe to stay updated on insights about male behavior and relationship dynamics, and share this with a friend who might be struggling with the same uncertainty. Your awareness could protect someone else from emotional harm. Remember, the signs of cheating aren't always loud. They whisper. They hide in routines, in subtle changes, in controlled transparency. But when you observe carefully, regulate your emotions, and trust your instincts, you'll see the truth before it blindsides you. Stay aware, stay grounded, and take your power back in the relationship.